border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
Throws deep downfield for the end zone, a lunging catch, and it's a score for the Herd, Jerron Woodyard. And it is 37-0, and Grant Wells is moving up toward a 300-yard passing performance in the first half. That is his 4th touchdown toss.
Story toward Jackson, got separation to the 20, to the 10, and he will go. Lucky Jackson from 54 yards out.
Pressure off the edge. Screen delivers. What a catch, Levias, who brings it in. Armani Levias to the house. Touchdown, Marshall.
This will be from 52 yards. From the far hash mark. John Haggerty, the punter, will hold. Jared Nash will snap it. It's definitely long enough. It is good! Unbelievable. The true freshman, Corey Munson, hammers it home from 52 yards.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Katie here with you, going solo. Just could not get schedules to line up, and we've got a game to preview, or else game day is going to be here, and we will have let you down. So I'm going to try my damnedest to preview this Louisville Western Kentucky game for you. The game is going down Saturday, 9/12, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on the ACC network. So a little bit of a marquee time slot for the Toppers to open the season against in-state rival Louisville. This is the third of a 3-game series that was signed several years ago. But before we get into that, let's talk about that ESPN Power Index. Doesn't really favor Western Kentucky this week, as is to be expected, really. 88.4% chance to win for Louisville. And as I'm recording right now, the current line on the game is Western Kentucky minus 11.5 points, with the over-under sitting at 57.5. Look, Louisville last year was a pretty decent team, 8-5. 5-3 in conference, good enough to land them number 2 in the Atlantic Division of the ACC. All time between the Cards and the Tops. Cards own a 21-12 edge in the all-time series, including 11 in a row currently, and counting if they get the win on Saturday. Louisville returns a fair amount of starters on both sides of the ball, 8 on offense, 8 on defense. And like I said before, this is the third game of a 3-game series. It was you can't really call it a 2-for-1 because it was 2 games in Louisville, 1 game in Nashville. Would have really been awesome if the Toppers could have got 1 game in Bowling Green, but it was just not to be. 2018 was the first game of the series up in Louisville, and it was a close one, man, 20-17, and it really looked like Western Kentucky was going to steal that game up there until, right at the very end, it kind of slipped away. And then last year, the game in Nashville was a little bit of a convincing win, but still not a blowout by any means. Louisville got the win there 38-21. So we're looking ahead now to the game on Saturday. And, Louisville, like I said, returns a fair amount of star power offensively as well as defensively. Western Kentucky does as well. And, of course, the big question mark surrounding Western Kentucky this offseason was who's going to be QB1. And Stephen and I talked about that the other day when we broke down the quarterback unit. And it was just announced the other day that Piggy will be QB1 at least for week 1. But we assume, barring anything catastrophic, for the entire season. But it's going to be an uphill battle for sure. I mean, Louisville returns all of its potent weapons on offense, or most of them, the majority of them. And we've talked plenty about how lethal that Western Kentucky can be on defense. I mean, up and down the roster at all units, defensive line, linebacker, and in the secondary, there are just a ton of playmakers. And, I don't know how the matchup will play out with what Western Kentucky likes to do on defense versus what Louisville likes to do on offense. We'll just have to kind of see. But when you've got two premier pass rushers like Western Kentucky has in D'Angelo Malone and Juwan Jones, then that's got to help, you would think, slow down the attack of this Louisville offense a little bit. And even if some runs get through the line or some passes are completed, Western Kentucky boasts a very strong linebacking core to limit yards after the catch or to limit yards after contact for those runners. And then, of course, in the secondary, several big guys that can make plays, including Devin Key, Antoine Kincaid, looking to build upon already strong seasons from 2019 and just great careers overall. But let's talk about some players to look out for Louisville. Junior quarterback Mikael Cunningham, 6'1", 192-pounder, passed for 2,061 yards last year, 22 touchdowns versus only 5 interceptions. He knows how to take care of the ball, that's for sure. Also racked up 482 yards to the good on the ground and found the end zone another 6 times. So a true dual threat quarterback. Always tough to game plan against, especially one that takes care of the ball like Cunningham seems to do. Better than a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio last year. Sophomore running back Javian Hawkins, 5'9", 182-pounder, 264 carries last year, over 1,500 yards rushing, 1,525 to be exact. Good for 5.8 yards per carry and 9 touchdowns on the ground. Toppers are going to have to do something to limit that yards per carry average. I mean, of course, it is a brand new season, but if he gets anywhere near 5.8 yards per carry, it's going to be a long day for the Toppers. But like I said, they're strong, not only on the edges in the defensive line, but up the middle as well. And then, of course, the linebackers, like I said before, go really deep, 3, 4, 5, 6 deep. So I'd like to think that this Topper defense can swarm enough to cut the yardage down significantly for Hawkins. A couple of wide receivers we'll talk about. Junior wide receiver Tutu Atwell, a real known entity for Louisville, one of the finer receivers in all of college football last year. 5'9", 153-pounder, 69 catches last year, 1,272 yards, good for 18.4 yards per catch, 11 touchdowns. Just a really strong season for Atwell last year. And I remember he had a really good game against Western Kentucky in Nashville last year. So I'm sure he's going to be looking to duplicate the effort that he had last year. Topper defenders are definitely going to have their hands full, but fully capable of playing stingy defense. And again, limiting Atwell to hopefully fewer than 18.4 yards per catch. Another wide receiver we'll talk about, senior this time, wide receiver Des Fitzpatrick, 6'2", 204, 35 catches last year, 635 yards, also over 18 yards per catch, 18.1, and he found the end zone another 6 times. So dangerous weapons all over the field on this Louisville offense. To me, the biggest question for the Toppers is, will this defense be able to slow down the Louisville offense? I think that Western Kentucky may have the ability to move the ball, not necessarily at will, but if they play decent, clean football, then they should have the opportunity to put some points on the board. I mean, last year they put up 21 points. Year before that, it was just 17, but of course Louisville only put up 20. It was a real nail biter. So we'll see what they can do. What I expect to see from Western Kentucky in this game, I expect to see them attempt to run a very balanced offense. I can't say that right now without seeing them play a competitive game. To me, it doesn't seem like this is the type of team that's going to drop back and throw it 50 times unless they absolutely have to. If they get behind the 8 ball early with a big margin and they're kind of forced to pass more often, then they, of course, will. But I don't know why Tyson Helton and Brian Ellis would want to come out and be either super run heavy or super pass heavy. Now, of course, if you come out and the run's working, you're not going to go away from it. At least I wouldn't. If you can get 4 yards of carry, then get that 4 yards of carry and move the chains every 3 downs and, play a shorter game and just take what they give you. But I expect to see a balanced offensive attack from Western Kentucky, especially if it's working and they can find a good run-pass balance. Number 2, I think you're going to have to turn – or I think you're going to see them turn D'Angelo Malone and Juwan Jones loose. They're going to have to try to get after Cunningham or whoever else is in the quarterbacking position there for Louisville. I mean, D'Angelo Malone may be the best player on the field when he's on the field. I mean, he's a bona fide stud defensive end. He's garnered all kinds of attention in the preseason. You're talking about an All-American on a lot of publications lists. And right now, I don't think it's any stretch to say he's a solid day 2 draft pick. And if he comes out and has a just stellar season, who knows? Might be able to sneak in and be a late first-round pick. I mean, that's going to take, a lot of statistics to show up for D'Angelo Malone just because of, the slight that our smaller school G5 guys get. But, hey, there is a premium on edge rushers in the NFL, and if you can do it, they want you. I also think you'll see, at least I expect to see at least one trick play. I mean, it's like death taxes and trick plays for Western Kentucky, the 3 certainties of life. And, when they're creative and keeping the defense guessing, I think that's when Western Kentucky's at their best. So this is one of those games that I feel like they won't necessarily have to pull out all of the stops to get a win, but they're going to have to pull out a lot of stops. And a trick play to me just coincides with, the personality of Western Kentucky football. I mean, I think as fans, we've seen it so often over the years in so many games that when you don't get a trick play in a game, you're like, what the heck? You kind of feel a little slighted. So I think you'll see at least one, but I just hope it's a good one. And of course I toss back to the Moonshine Throwdown of 2019, and we saw a trick play early. Not really a trick play, but we saw, a wide receiver pass early in the game, and it really shouldn't have been thrown. It should have been tucked and run, but it ended up being a turnover. So I hope we see those plays that are called at the right moment. And that's hard. Who knows when the right moment is? It either works or it doesn't. But I fully expect to see at least one trick play. Now, look, it's not going to be an easy road unless Louisville comes out and just cannot hold on to the football, and they look like the Keystone Cops out there playing offense and putting the ball on the field, and they can't move the ball or whatever the case may be. This is not going to be an easy game. As a matter of fact, I kind of think Louisville can afford to maybe turn it over once or twice and still be kind of okay. That's not to say that, Western can't come out and dazzle. I mean, we just saw Marshall come out and do what we didn't think they were going to do. We figured they would beat, of course, Eastern Kentucky, but nobody thought they were going to come out and play as well as they did and put up 59 points all by the offense. But the Toppers could do the very same thing. I mean, everything they want to run could just work. I mean, it's week 1 in a weird season, a wild off season. We've got so much surrounding the game, limited fans, all that. We all know the rigmarole by now. It's just not normal. So anything could absolutely happen. So particularly my 4 points for the Toppers to get a win in this game. Number 1, Piggy, QB1. He's got to play clean ball. He's got to have a solid debut outing in a Toppers uniform. You got to take what the defense gives you. You got to tuck it and run when you have to tuck it and run. I mean, just live to fight another day. Don't toss it into triple coverage. Don't make those bonehead plays. I mean, you're an upperclassman. You're a graduate transfer. So you've played a lot of football. You've played a lot of football in some big situations, and you've played in some big games. And right off the bat, it's a different little animal for him, seeing as how he was at a Big Ten school, at a Power 5 school. So now you're going to come into the more of an underdog role from a G5, P5 perspective. But still, I mean, I'm sure they were underdogs plenty during his tenure at Maryland. But you got to play clean ball. If Piggy plays clean ball, then the Toppers have a chance. If he does not, they have probably no chance. Number 2, kind of coinciding with that, but more on a team concept, you can't have any stupid penalties. I mean, no false starts on 3rd and 1. I mean, no offsides on 3rd and 1, all that kind of stuff that extends a drive or kills a drive. Penalties are going to happen. We know they're going to happen, but if you can A, limit them, B, limit the moments when they happen, nothing crucial, nothing critical, no drive killers, you got to give yourself every opportunity to make every play that you can. Toppers are no doubt up for this game. I mean, you think they don't want to knock off Louisville to start out the season and, start on a really, really high note? I mean, think about week 1 or game 1 last year. I mean, it was an upset loss at the hands of an FCS school at home. And then you turn around and win 9 games. So let's use a little bit of that momentum. We're still riding a little bit high. We've got a little bit of momentum to springboard. We'll see if they are absolutely able to springboard off of that big bowl win, the last second game-winning kick from Corey Munson, and use that positive energy towards this season and kind of rise above all that's been going on, with the pandemic and whatnot, and see if you can get up to Louisville up the road there a little bit and steal a W and come back to Warren County happy. It's going to be tough. You can't say that enough, but the Toppers are up for the task. I mean, you don't go in expecting to lose. They're fully going in expecting to win. And I think that they match up pretty well in certain areas. We'll just see if enough of those areas fall in favor of the Toppers or if they can capitalize on some of those matchups. Number 3, you've got to get off of the field on 3rd down. You've got to. I mean, if Louisville is 60% on 3rd down, it's pretty much a wrap. And I think we all know that. I don't think we're fooling ourselves to think that, Louisville can go 12 of 16 or, 12 of 17 on 3rd down or something like that. And it's going to be hunky dory for the Tops. It's absolutely not. They're going to have to keep Louisville somewhere around the 25% mark on 3rd down conversions. When you have an opportunity to get off the field, you have to get off the field. I mean, 3 and outs are key. If you give up 1 or 2 first downs, then you run the risk of getting the field flipped on you and then having to work a long field to get some scores. So defense right off the rip is the strength of this team. We've talked about it from day 1. The offense could absolutely be really good. There's plenty of weapons that are returning, but we all know that the defense is going to be the strength of this team out of the gate. So it has to actually be the strength of the team. It can't just be that words into a microphone or, written on paper somewhere. It's going to have to mean something when the rubber meets the road. Number 4, you're going to have to take some shots. Offensively, you're going to have to take some shots. You're going to have to bust a big play or two. And we can think back to the game last year. Steven and I have talked about it a number of times, especially when we were talking about wide receivers and tight ends. This is when Joshua Simon had that huge play. It's like 77-yard touchdown pass or touchdown reception or something like that. It was against Louisville. So they are susceptible just like anybody else to big plays and big touchdown plays. And Western Kentucky has proven that they can do that to the Louisville defense. We're just going to have to see a little bit more of it. I don't know what form or fashion it's going to come in, but there is absolutely going to have to be some shots taken and some shots completed. A quick score, a fluky score, while it's not absolutely needed to get a win in this game, I mean, toppers could line up and go down for down and yard for yard and come out on top when it's all said and done. But you can't sit there listening to this podcast and tell me a quick score or 2 fluky busted coverage touchdowns isn't going to help. And you're going to have to take those shots when they come. And if they do come, we talk about the pain of seeing an overthrown ball on a wide open receiver that will go for a touchdown. In this game, that's going to loom really large. Take your shots when they are presented. Set up a shot for later in the game. You know, I have complete faith in the creativity and the game plan ability of Tyson Helton and Brian Ellis. I mean, they're 2 of the best creative offensive minds in the conference, in the G5, and arguably in the country. So if you don't think they don't have a play or 2 sitting there in the notebook just for this game, you're fooling yourself, because there most certainly is a play or 2 that they've saved or they have drawn up just for this game. And we may never see it for the rest of the season, but I think we'll see it in this game. So it would have really been nice to have Steven here with me so we could talk about some of these things a little bit more in depth. But schedules are what schedules are. Let's talk about a 200 proof player. I wasn't able to get who Steven's 200 proof player was or a score prediction, but I'll tell you mine. And I have a couple of guys in mind, but I think since the largest question marks around this team was a quarterback, Piggy's got to be the 200 proof player. And if he has a breakout game, a solid debut, takes care of the football, we see him have 200 yards passing, couple of touchdowns, another 80, 90 yards on the plus side rushing, maybe find the end zone one more time. Hey, I think the Toppers are setting pretty with a puncher's chance to get this win. I wish I felt better about it, but I don't. And I don't think there's too many Topper fans that are thinking, yeah, we got this one in the bag. Louisville's won 11 in a row, and more recently they've won 2 in the last 2 years. So it's hard to just be overconfident. I hope that we see the Tops sneak up on them and bash them in the mouth, and we just see Louisville get stunned and never really recover, or recover when it's, much too late. A punch in the mouth, and then 21 points later, Louisville's trying to play catch up. That would be phenomenal. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to play out that way. Western Kentucky minus 11.5 to start. I do not like the Toppers to cover. Unfortunately, I think Louisville is going to win this game 38-24. So I would bet the over if I'm a betting man, but I don't think it's in the cards for Western Kentucky to get a win this week, unfortunately. But if they do, boy, I would be a great way to start this season. A big win in a quarterback's debut. I mean, that would be awesome. So let's see if these Toppers can make it happen. A couple of things we've got to talk about before we get final thoughts and then get out of here this week will be news broke today that senior wide receiver Jaquez Sloan has entered the transfer portal. Don't really know what that's all about, if it's like a depth chart type thing or anything else, but it just seems kind of odd timing that here we are just a few days away from game 1 and he's decided that he wants to move on. But hey, it's hard to see these guys go, especially when we were expecting them to have a larger season, more productive season than we saw a year ago, play a larger part of the offense than we saw a year ago. But I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. A person has to do what they think is best for them. You only get one life in this world, and you shouldn't let somebody else live it for you. So if Sloan thinks he needs to move on, and that's his best option and best route for success, then all I can do is say thanks for everything you've done to elevate the Moonshine Throwdown into what it is now. And I wish you well. I hope the next stop is better for you than Western Kentucky has been. I know the fans appreciate the effort and the plays that you have made. I don't think anyone has any ill will towards you. So best of luck, Jacques Sloan, as you look for your next stop. And the last tidbit that we have to talk about was something that I saw on Twitter, and it's kind of a bummer. It looks like senior linebacker Clay Davis may be out for the season. I believe it was a knee injury. I'm not certain if it was an ACL. That's ringing around in my head. I can't remember if exactly that's what I saw, but I do remember seeing that he was going to be out for the season. So it is really, really nice that, the NCAA has granted an extra year of eligibility for everyone. So if, Mr. Davis wants to come back and play another year, he should be able to do that. So hopefully we see a speedy recovery. You come back stronger than you were before the injury, and get well soon, Clay Davis. All right. How about final thoughts? Look, 2020 is here. The season is finally here for Western Kentucky fans. They had to wait a little bit longer, watch a few games get played out before they finally get to take the field themselves, but it looks like it's finally here. For the longest time, we didn't think we were going to have a season. Of course, we keep saying that, and as more games gets canceled or postponed, it ultimately may end up that way. But for the time being, on Saturday, Western Kentucky is going to line up against Louisville, an hour and a half up the road from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and they're going to try to get a win against an ACC opponent, an in-state rival, and somebody that's kind of had their number the past couple of years. So if we can see a clean game, a little bit of exciting offense, some stellar defensive play, no stupid penalties, and take care of the ball, I think Western Kentucky can sneak out with a win. I mean, of the scenarios of how this game could play out, and you talk about a big topper win, a close topper win, a close topper loss, or a blowout topper loss. About the only scenarios I don't see are a blowout topper win or a blowout topper loss. This could be a close win or a close loss, or it could be a sizable win. I mean, I picked Louisville to win by 14. To me, that's not a blowout loss. That's an average. That's 2 scores is not bad. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But look, let's not even worry about all that. Let's go up and let's sneak up against the Louisville Cardinals. Let's pop them in the grill 1 or 2 times and watch their eyeballs get glassed over. And hopefully we have found the end zone 2 or 3 times before they get their wits back about them. I'll try to do better next time. I promise. We'll get Steven in here too. And when we do this wrap up, hopefully it's a good one. But until next week, I guess I get to take us out of here. So go Tops, go Herds. We'll see you next week. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. Later.